Welcome to News with a View, fatcatproduction.com, of course. It's January 12th, 2025, and we will be discussing today on episode, uh, this is episode 5. Again, talking about the LA fires and talking about uh, everything else that is going on in the news. Uh, my name is John Costa, and this is News with a View. A lot of things going on today. We saw the LA fires is still going. Of course, Mayor Karen Bass, who was away when the fire broke out, she had no idea that there was going to be a fire. They're yelling at her, a lot of people, saying she should not have been away. Well, how would she have known? Yes, the fire alert was high in the Los Angeles area, uh, but it always is at this time of year. This was nothing out of the ordinary. Uh, and they said that she should have been more involved in with the planning and execution of her office. But Los Angeles, you would think, one of the second largest cities, uh, their mayor does not have that direct power like other mayors do. They have lots of little bureaucracies built inside of it, a lot of boards and people that do a lot of the weight that the mayor would be totally responsible for. So, you know, let's not uh, let's not blame her for being away when this happened. She got back as quick as she could, considering. Uh, and she has stated, hey, there's going to be plenty of time for finger pointing, but let's deal with the crisis that's going on. And really, that's not an unreasonable request. Uh, of course, her political leanings are coming into question, and that's an interesting point for people to go to. Uh, you know, she was elected. Obviously, the people got over whatever personal or leaning that she had. So to me, it's not that is not uh, a thing where I would go, oh, Lord, it's she's this and that. No, she was elected. Um, that's the deal. Let her do her job now. We'll, everyone will have their chance to dig into everything that has taken place that led up to this. Of course, Governor Newsom had ordered an investigation on why the power and water pressure was not there. Gee, I don't know, Gavin, but when you have a fire, power lines burn down, and you know you take 5,000 homes, 10,000 homes, 12,000 structures, and they're gutted, and the water pipes are all exposed now. And what do you think's going to happen? Uh, it's much to do about nothing that he's, pounding his chest and saying, we're going to investigate this. It's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous, and it isn't necessary. I mean, you could look into it. What are they going to say? This happened, you know, uh, because of the fire. Okay, The other things that they will look into, of course, is funding. Uh, the what was her name? Kristen Crowley, the fire chief in LA, had been sending memos, asking for more funding, and this was a month and a half ago, and then questioning the legitimacy of cutting $7 million in overtime for firefighters. Now, $7 million in a budget like they had, that's nothing. I mean, they'll figure that out, but that is not what is to blame for what had happened. The uh, policies of the local governments will definitely be called into question, as they should be. The losses, one financial estimate was $50 billion, maybe 20 billion in insurance losses, and 50 billion in total economic losses. Now I don't know if that was on top of that, so it's $70 billion. It seems very low. That's a very low ball number, considering everything that has been damaged here. Now that might be $20 billion that people had insurance. What about the people that didn't have insurance? So 20 billion or 50 billion, it seems awful low to me. Considering that a box of nails for 10 pounds goes for what, $60? You know how many nails it takes to put up a house? This number doesn't make sense that they're calling. This is probably just a number that some analyst used that needs to protect the stock value of these insurance companies. So people aren't going to panic and go, "Whoop! I'm getting out of Dodge." So Gavin Newsom has also, on his or a podcast that he was on, had stated that Trump may hold back funding. He's done it before. He's tried before. I don't think that Trump is going to hold back funding. So, and Governor Newsom has already been pointing at local governmental officials as to why these problems during the fire, not the fire itself, I mean, but what was going on, during the crisis. I mean, it's still ongoing. I mean, this is far from over. It's going to be a personal nightmare for all these people, financial nightmare for a majority of those people. We have to make sure that the people, all the people, are looked after, and that is the good faith of the United States. The man who was arrested for possible arson, that charge has not happened. The investigator said at this time they do not have enough evidence that he was an arsonist, even though he was arrested with one of those propane blowtorch things. And he was homeless. I don't. And he said he used that to smoke pot with. I don't know what type of blunt that he's smoking, but it has to be also big if you need a flamethrower to light it. I think there were people that were witnesses to him possibly starting fires, but they haven't, come forward, or the police haven't investigated. This is going to be an interesting story in itself as a backstory. The man was charged for felony probation violation. All right, this guy was a criminal, and he's out roaming the streets with a flamethrower. Yeah, come on, L.A. You know, even Mayor Adams of New York is, this would be no bueno, no bueno. So interesting. I'm using my cliff notes here because I'm not a very, I'm not a very smart man. The other thing in the news today, and actually happened on Friday, was that special prosecutor Jack Smith has resigned. Um, I'm a little, I'm a little upset that he resigned. Um, as I stated in the previous podcast, I wouldn't have resigned. You have to fire me, and I get to say my piece. He resigned after submitting his final report to Attorney General Garland. And remember, this was the report with the 37 counts of Trump refusing to give back 30 documents relating to uh, you know government ownership, and these were classified documents. So it's mishandling of classified data. Um, Same thing that happened to Hillary. These type of things are um, low hanging fruit. It's easy to go in. The problem that Trump had uh, was that he just refused to deal with the subpoenas, and refused to deal with the Department of Justice to you know try to work out a compromise. Uh, you know, President Trump was not one to listen to lawyers. If he felt that he was right, he was right. Personally, um, I would have invited the Department of Justice and whoever was in charge of those, National Archive or the Congressional, Library, whoever it was, in to look at them, um, making sure they all had the proper clearance to do so, um, and then make the claim. And if I would have been Trump, I would say, "Hey, listen, I'm going to make the claim. These are mine." And I think in everything that I've read, they were fine with that. They were fine with him saying, "Hey, you can make the claim that it's yours, and we'll go through that channel. But in the meantime, we're taking these." And that's where the problem really existed. He goes, "You're not taking them. These are mine." And in the end, what could Comey do? He had to. He couldn't let this slide, and he ordered a search warrant. They executed it, and the rest is history. The case against Trump, the charges that were made against uh, Trump, uh, Judge Cannon, she said and ruled that Jack Smith was never properly uh, uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Um, Never properly. He wasn't allowed to do what he did. He was not vetted. It did not go through Congress. It did not follow the procedures set forth that a special prosecutor had to have. So he they threw that out. The judge said was he was not properly appointed. Okay, technicalities, but technicality counts. And dismissed all those charges. The flip side of that is that okay, they got a ruling, Now his case that Jack Smith also brought up was, the charges in Georgia of election not interference, but trying to stay in power and uh, a criminal activity. Well, if he wasn't allowed to do what he did in Florida, well, the same is going to hold true in Georgia. It's just a matter of time. And, they ended up dismissing those charges under the guise that, okay, he won. So you can't charge a sitting president, and theoretically he's sitting. Uh, this was all political. There was very little meat on the bone here. And the fact that Jack Smith still wants, it's Attorney General, United States Attorney General, who will then decide whether or not that report gets disseminated to the public. Garland is a pretty straight shooter. You might not like him, might not like his politics, but he's somewhat of a stand-up guy. And again, like I always say, you don't have to like what you hear, but facts are facts. I am on the fence on whether or not he'll release it. I think that he will probably not, and do that under the interest of, just ending it. And that, though he might release it and say, hey, let the facts that we found, even though Jack Smith theoretically was not supposed to, he couldn't, he didn't have the authority to gather the information that he did. So I look at that as, the fruit of the poison tree. If you're going to release that, and he should never have gotten that, yeah, that's bad form. But that's just me. Again, I'm not a lawyer. you know, the most time I spent, in a court was on jury duty, and maybe paying reducing a speeding ticket, or reducing you ran a red light. You didn't stop at the stop sign, and I think I might have had 3 of those in my whole driving career. So that's interesting news, and of course, in the same breath, a week before, 10 days before he's going to take office, or not 10 days, 16. I'm sorry, 6 days away, or 7 days, 8, not 9 days, or 8 days. I can count. That they're racing to get this stuff out, and the same thing with the sentencing in New York for the hush money, which is called an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement. It's done every day. You make any type of settlement with an insurance company where 2 parties have come to an agreement, without it going to court, outside the civil. They make you sign an NDA. It's done every day. You leave an employer, and they might have you sign an NDA where you can't discuss anything that happened for 2 years, or so. So the sentencing was, thank you. No probation, no. I'm gonna, you're sentenced to 2 years suspended nothing like that. No fine, no nothing. Was told Godspeed in your 4-year term, and that was it. And really, that's exactly what the judge should have done, because the judge could not go, hey, this was baloney. I'm just throwing it out. That's not what that judge could do. President-elect Trump was a private citizen then, when he went through the trial, and he was convicted. Okay? He was convicted. Now, that conviction was not by a jury. That was by a judge. He ended up having a bench trial because of, Trump says was a technicality, and the judge said, "Hey, you got really powerful lawyers there. They should have known that there was a time frame into asking for, a change of trial from a bench type trial to a jury type trial." So I think the appeal, which will happen, probably take a couple of years, and this will go away too. His conviction will be overturned, and that will be the end of it. The case against Rudy Giuliani, I mean, absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And I never thought of Rudy Giuliani as being a particularly good federal prosecutor. If you looked at his records, a lot or almost all of his cases that he brought when he was in the Southern District as a federal prosecutor got reversed on appeal. So, he wasn't what I would call a Chris Christie. Chris Christie was a tough prosecutor and good. Christie, he wasn't leaving the table till he was full. So, that is what happened with Trump in New York, and of course, the news. Oh, he's fuming, he's screaming, he went into a tantrum. He did what Trump does. No tantrum. He just said, "Hey, the charge was baloney. It was a witch hunt. I'm going to fight it," and he can fight it, just like other people can fight their conviction. Now, the difference is, I couldn't afford, $20 million lawyers. So what would happen with us? But one, it would never have gone to where it went to. Where this all went to was really about $100,000, mistake on paperwork, and nothing was stolen. Nothing was just the way the papers were filed and the way the money was transferred. Which in any other case, any other person, they probably wouldn't even fine the company. They would have just said, "Hey, you got to fix this, and you got to show us that you're going to make a good effort not to have this happen again," and at worst, some type of fine. And they didn't. They went after this like it was the Nuremberg trials. So, little upset with how they did that, and to what extent, and what a waste of time. What a waste of time. But again, they were dealing with, dealing with Trump, and he's, again, I'm not making any deal. I'm not making anything to, other than the fact that I'm not guilty. This is all, a show. And, he's right, but, you got people that you have to answer to, and that's what happens. We'll see what happens. It will be interesting. Other thing that was in the news that caught my eye, and it's factual. I believe it's factual, but it's a little bit of race baiting. But, and I think it was out of Reuters, that in 1921, the Tulsa massacre, which was Tulsa riots, The Justice Department has very credible evidence. Law enforcement took part in the massacre against the black population in Tulsa. 1921, 104 years ago. They have credible evidence now that that took place. All right. To what extent? There's no one left there to sue. No one from that time, I don't think, is around. There might be someone who was a year old that survived, so they're not a credible witness. Uh, and the fact that they probably dug through historical files to come to this conclusion. Uh, but I didn't see everything that was presented as fact and credible evidence. Okay, what are you going to do? What does this do other than acknowledge the fact? And people knew that that the police department in Tulsa in 1921 didn't care about civil rights. It's shocking, shocking. You know, this is mind-boggling, right? If any of you was a child of the 50s, my dad would drive down to Florida, and we'd see chain gangs. And I could remember we stopped somewhere in Georgia, and I had to run to the bathroom, and I saw a men's room. What was I, 6 or 7, and you didn't have your parents come with you. Your dad goes, go in there, do your business, and come back out here. Get back to the car or go. And I went into a black only bathroom and just you can't go, you can't come in here, can't come in here. And I was like, I'm going to have an accident if I don't go. And I was like, I don't know what you're saying, and I used the bathroom. And I came back out, and then someone stopped me and go, hey, you must be a Yankee. You can't go in there. That's for the colored folk. And I looked and I was like, what do you mean, colored folk? Or we knew Negroes and we knew coloreds, but why can't they use a bathroom? They got their own bathroom? Hey, do I get my own bathroom? And it was, an enlightenment for me to see this, that then stopping in restaurants and then seeing, blacks had to go to a different door or something like that. And I could remember my mom telling us about that. And that is, wrong. We don't do that. And I go, well, why do they do it? Why is it allowed here and not allowed, where we come from? And, she said, no, there's prejudice where we come from. And there's people that will judge you by your color or your race or where you came from. And I just remember going, wow, okay, And my, brothers and, my sister was, what was she, about 9 years older than me. So, probably looked at me like, freaking moron. Doesn't know nothing. And my older brother, Roy, was, 4 years older than me. So, he had a better understanding of what was going on. But my brother, Don and Rick, Rick was just it wasn't, I don't think Rick was, Rick was born, he was a little baby. We had, it's a madhouse. What is this? And when we were in Florida, we saw the same thing. And then you realize that that's black only. You can only go over there. And I remember doing that at a water fountain somewhere. And oh no, that's for black people. And I was like, it's a water fountain. I'm thirsty. I don't care who used it. I'm sure the person after me is not going to care. And what was I, 6, 7? And, just going, where does this end? And you learned. And it was an eye opener. So, did things, you know, was law enforcement behind, and, were culpable in, the abuse and murder of black citizens in Tulsa? Yeah, I probably guarantee that. That I don't need a Ouija board. I don't need a crystal ball to kind of figure that out. Uh, the other thing that I saw in the news, and I always look in New York State because that's where I came from, and my kids are, two of my children are there, my grandchildren, uh, was that the Governor Herschel wants to ban institutional buying of residential homes, at least for the first 75 days they're on the market, and to prohibit these entities from overbidding. So, someone wants $800,000 for their home, and they can come in and go, well, you know what? I don't. I have no problem with the 800,000. As a matter of fact, I'm going to give you 805,000. And then someone else turns around and says, well, I really want that house. I'm going to give 810 or 806, and then these equity firms and BlackRock and whoever else can come in and just outbid and take the property. And she wants to stop that. Now that was a major claim made by Robert Kennedy Jr. During his campaign for president, and I heard him speak in Charleston, maybe twice in Charleston. My wife and I drove down there, and we'd like to hear uh, what Robert Kennedy Jr. Has to say. And some of the stuff he said made absolutely perfect sense. And you go, yeah, I can get there. I can understand what he's doing or what he wants. My problem that I had with his housing scheme, and that was his housing scheme was the government writes all the paper. And my thing is, if you're going to write paper, then let's do it where a person could take a $500,000 home and take a 50-year mortgage on it at a certain percentage rate. And, it goes from, paying, on a $300,000 mortgage from a payment of, maybe, $1,900 down to like $650. Now, of course, most of that's interest, but that person is saving, $1,100 a month. So now he can go out and maybe buy a car, washer and dryer, fix the house up a little bit, take a vacation, put money in the bank. And for allowing them to do this, the government gets a little vig at the end, a percentage. If that house goes up to $1 million, and this individual homeowner got such a tremendous deal, well, the government gets their piece of the action too at the end, and you work that all out. But you could have a 50-year mortgage if you want, and they do that in Europe. 99-year. It's almost a lease. It's not even a mortgage. But to block businesses from coming in and venture companies to come in and doing that, yeah, I don't know. I kind of understand why she wants to do it, because what that does is takes housing away from people, that don't have deep pockets to go after that. And the homeowner knows if I wait 75 days, I can, I can get more. But that's always the homeowner's prerogative. He could go, yeah, I know you said my house is worth $700,000, but I'm going to list it as $780,000. And the other people can, negotiate me down, or a BlackRock could come in and give me my $780,000. Now, once that happens, then the median market for a house in that is not $700,000 anymore, $780,000, and that might make it unattainable for the average person. Uh, so it's a real stab at let the market do what the market does. But yeah, I can understand too that that's not really the market, because the market's being manipulated by a company that has so much money that they can manipulate it. So it will be interesting on how she's going to approach this and how the legislation is going to handle it. One of the things she wants to do is, if they do buy it after on the 76th day, the interest on, however they're doing it, whatever it is, uh, maybe even the property tax is non-deductible for them in that state. They can't deduct it. Now that's discriminatory, and I think that would get struck down, and they'd say, yeah, we can't do that. Uh, the corporation pays their tax rate, excuse me, and whatever the tax rate is for them, as the homeowner, private citizen, at their tax rate gets the deduction as per, allowed by law. So when you start playing games with that and going, you get, you don't, um, yeah, it could get interesting. Um, Not much more. I didn't do that much of a show prep today. A lot of running around here. Um, it's been busy. Uh, I wanted to do a lot more today, and I like doing these podcasts. And whoever watches watches. I'm hoping, like starting out, you don't know. Uh, but I would like to do 1 hour or 2 hours every day. I would like to do one in the morning, from about 9:30, 10 in the morning, and then again one at 7 o'clock. But that 7 o'clock one I would love to do live, um, and with my co-host Alice Incognito, um, who couldn't make it today. And I told her, well, if you were working and getting paid, I'd fire you for not coming in. So take that. Write the work state. Uh, Other than that, I hope everyone is safe. It was cold here in South Carolina, in the Murrells Inlet area. We actually had sleet and some snow. Well, of course, snow doesn't stick or do anything, but you did see snow, and the last time we saw that was about 3 years ago, and we actually did get a nice dusting of snow. I have some nice pictures of it. So I hope if you're living where it's supposed to be warm, it's warm. Where you're living and it's supposed to be cold, well, you chose to live there. Uh, Coming from New York, we dealt with that. 6 months out of the year, where people I know that came from Maine, that was 8 months out of the year. So it gets, it is what it is. The people that are still, and they will be suffering for years in the Los Angeles area, prayers go out to them, goes out again to the family. I can't imagine dealing with everything that was going on. The death toll continues to rise, and I'm just shocked that it's not, so much higher. So whatever advance notice they got, whatever warnings they got, most of the people, 99.9% of the people were able to get out. And some people chose to stay to try to, battle, save their house, which is a lost cause unless you have like a pool where, and a generator and stuff that you could start pumping the water out. But again, you could never, you got a hose. Yeah, if you're really good, you got a 3/4 inch hose, and you're not stopping those type of fires. You could have had a fire truck there, and unless you're just aiming at one house, blanketing it, that's all you're going to do. And you know, tragic, but people, it's their home. It's what they got, and they're going to fight for it. But and again, once you make that decision to stay, and fire, comes around all around you, you can't go. You're stuck, and it's a terrible thing. During Superstorm Sandy, we had our house on Long Island. We had our house down in South Carolina too. My wife was in South Carolina and decided to come up and be with me for the hurricane. Just to help secure everything around the property and put everything away. And you're getting all these reports of the storm, and we were thinking, we never left. I never went to a shelter in all my life on Long Island, and that was over 60 years. So we never, stuck it through. We had some bad hurricanes, and everything turned out all right. So we decided to stay, and the storm came in. It, we lost power like in 15 minutes, and we knew that because we had trees and everything. Well, the trees all started coming down, and now you couldn't get out. The streets were blocked, and then we were only maybe 150 yards from the water, and that water came up and came up and came up, and we were watching from our front window, and I had a generator, so I had a generator going. My house was lit. I was, fat, dumb, and happy, and that water kept coming up, and we ended up moving our car onto our lawn because my other car was in the driveway, and we had one of these houses that you have like a little built on a mound, and it had a basement, and I had two sump pumps, and so I knew the water, even if it came up a little bit, my big sump pumps would start pumping it out. Well, once the water got up to the house, now it could breach the basement windows. It just had to come up like 8 or 9 inches from that ground level to breach my windows. And I said, well, I can go downstairs. I could screw the windows in so the frames don't pop out and from the pressure, but I guarantee you, that won't hold. And the water came about a half inch from the top of that window, and then the eye came and everything started to push back out. But in the meantime, we had boats floating by, pumpkins because it was Halloween, garbage pails, everything you could imagine was floating down the streets. And I just kept thinking, I go, oh my God, my brother actually lives on the water, about 1.5 miles from where I live. And of course, there was no communications. Everything was down by that point. And the next day, we made it through. My generator, everything stayed working, and yay. But we couldn't get out. we could not get out, and we were right near a major road that the had to be cleared for the fire department. So the town came through and they chainsawed everything. I had a chainsaw. I was able to cut a path out, and I tried to drive to see my brother's house, but you forget that I forgot there's a dip, and that was still all full of water. That didn't get pushed out; it just got trapped in there and became like a lake, and I couldn't get through. And I wouldn't even attempt to drive through because then you're looking at it, I go, I know that dips down like 6 or 7 feet, and it took about 5 days for me to get to my brother's house. And I remember I said I had a spare, I had two spare little generators, and one I gave to a neighbor, and the other neighbor, I had like 250 feet of 10 gauge wire, double, the gauge wire. And I hooked it up. I was able to get their heating system going for them because they were an elderly couple. And, you do everything you're not supposed to do, backfeed the box, pull the main, and, all right. The power wasn't going to come on for weeks. So I had my generator going, and I got to my brother's house. And by that point, everyone had taken everything out of their houses and just loaded it onto their front lawns. And I was like, oh, you got to be kidding. And I got to my brother's house, and the water actually got to his second floor. And so we went through, we gutted everything, or he actually jumped on that and gutted it. And, I was like, hey, you might not don't get in front of your insurance. And he just looked at me and goes, I have flood insurance and stuff. He goes, no one's going to pay me anything. And he was absolutely right. He got like $5,000 for furnishing, and maybe 25 or $30,000, and in other stuff. And he was tickled pink because he said I could buy the sheetrock, I could do everything, and he did. He did. Him, his son, a couple of buddies. I was working, so I couldn't get over there much. I did. But his basement got flooded, of course, and they pumped that out. They got their oil burner going again, and he was very resourceful, and for about $30,000, got that house back up, and he's dug into his own money. So I know what these people are going to go through. That there is no way that the insurance companies are going to be just good hands. I'll tell you where that hand's going to be. These people are going to have to fight for every penny, and some of them are just going to be just all right, fine, fine, we'll deal with it, and they'll have to accept. FEMA might be there and help out, and the government might. The California might try to pass legislation and do things to speed it along. But all that will really do is chase out the insurers, and they're gonna the camp, what was the campfire that happened in a couple of years ago, that was $10 billion. $10 billion in insurance losses, and that was small. This small compared to what has just happened. And when I hear economists are saying it's maybe $20 billion. $20 billion? You're kidding me. And $50 billion in economic losses. Take that number, put some extra zeros on it. Because there is no way. There is no way. This isn't at least $400-500 billion. And my guess is we'll get up to the $1 trillion. I said that yesterday. When you get the infrastructure and the utilities and paying state employees, paying getting crews in to get everything up and going as quick as possible. And there'll be debates on, do we run these things underground now so they can't catch on fire? Do we do this? Do we upgrade the water connections? We got to repair the streets, so we're going to dig it up anyway. Uh, it will be interesting to see how they'll go about doing that. And my bet is they'll just do it, quick and dirty, get the people back in their housing, and let's hope this doesn't happen again. I mean, everyone has known this was coming. There wasn't a person with any type of knowledge of the area and the boom and just the people coming into that area and just the expansion of that area, that this wasn't an accident waiting to happen. And and again, you blame people, but that doesn't rebuild their houses or replace the people that are gone and the loss. And again, there are no guarantees. No guarantees. Uh, so you expect the government to help you. Yeah, let's hope they do. I mean, we've helped everyone else, and I know I'm hearing reports, and I couldn't put my finger on them. I know Fox News had a report that the mayor and governor turned down help from New York firefighters. The New York Fire Department said, we'll send people out there, we'll pay for their flight, we'll get them out there and help. And the mayor said, no, we're getting help from Mexico. And I heard one report where she goes, where it was report she said, I never said that. That's, we'll take help wherever we can get it. But Fox had something out there contradicting that statement. But again, I didn't hear it. I didn't hear her say it. I have not heard Newsom say it. So until I hear them say it, I'm not believing it. Uh, I'll hold my judgment out on that, and I won't get caught. Mayor Bash said, screw New York and their help, and it could be something as simple that maybe she did say that. Maybe she said, hey, thanks, but no thanks. We need firefighters here that understand how to deal with wildfires, and not, a house fire, which is totally different. And, all these firefighters will do is kind of slow our first responders down a bit. And, for right now, thank you, and we'll, if we do it, we'll let you know, which could be the logical answer, which could be a logical thing to say. Hey, if they don't know how to fight wildfires, and it's just not putting a hose on a fire. All right, I can understand that. That there could be some rationale behind it, but I haven't heard any of that. I haven't heard one thing or another, and the history of Bass, Mayor Bass, is that because of the politics of Los Angeles, a lot of things get done behind closed doors because there's so many different committees and the bureaucracy. That she gets used to dealing and making those decisions in a committee, and not just her going off the cuff and going, "This is what we're going to do," So let's give her time. Give her some time. Give Newsom some time. Don't be so quick. And the finger pointing will happen quick enough. Let's get the fires out first, and then get the people that need settlement. Let's get them in a good place, or at least a place. But before we start jumping on the bandwagon and, shaking our fists and, everyone taking a political position on a disaster. There'll be time enough for that. So, all right, folks, I'm going to say good night. And again, ending this with say a prayer for those affected by these disasters. Um, it's bad. Um, the other thing that we're going to touch on tomorrow is again the uh, New Year's Eve incident in New Orleans has now got pushed aside by the news. It's old news, but it's still very active. And I'm trying to get as much information. And again, the only time I can get it is through the internet. And, if it's controlled, it's controlled. But at least I'll be able to get the facts of a FBI spokesman making a comment or a press release or something where you could tie stuff back and go, oh, that guy said this. Instead of just saying, well, unnamed sources, who aren't allowed to speak with the press. Well, then why are you listening to them? I could go to a bar and hear that. So I like the facts, and that's news with a view. We look at the facts. We'll throw in our opinions. We'll throw in our bias. But if we throw in our bias, it's going to be based on facts, not emotions. So, thank you, everyone. Be safe. Stay warm. Stay cold, wherever you are. And we'll catch you tomorrow. All right. Good night as I fade to black.